Hello and welcome to another edition of AFL Trade Talk. This is the show where Tom and I are going to talk about all the trading opportunities on the Betfair Exchange, and I'm going to welcome in Tom. How are you? It was a big round for you in Adelaide for Gather Round last week.
Yeah, Gather Round got the better of me, I think, Karl. Gather Round 1, Tom 0. A bit under the weather, but what a weekend it was in Adelaide. Celebrated, there was a buzz around. I was fortuitous enough to sit at the SEN studio at 1 King William, across the road basically from Adelaide Oval. It was an absolute buzz, people walking around in teams' outfits, and started off Thursday night, and what a way to start off, Karl. You potted, I'll get straight into this. You sat here last week, said Crows had none, Carlton this, Carlton that. Quarter time, it was 8 goals to 2, or how are you feeling?
That's the game. That's the great game, Tom. I made a prediction. Look, out of Carlton's next 5 games, who would have thought Adelaide was actually going to be the hardest one? They turned it on. That's the best footy I've seen from Adelaide in a very, very long time.
Since 2017, that was the best game of football they've played. So
I agree.
Unbelievable. They've put it together. They're very efficient up forward. Their ball movement was fantastic. Carlton, a lot of people saying after that match that Carlton looked a bit one-paced and a bit slow. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's an interesting call. I mean, I think in that inside midfield brigade, somewhere where Carlton have been very strong over the last couple of years, there definitely were a few flaws that, you know, especially the main footy pundits were pointing out. I tend to agree. It's not going to get any better with Adam Sard missing this week with hamstring tightness as well, Tom. So
did he play last week? Did he?
Yeah.
Old.
Thanks for that one, Tom.
Ben Keys just tagged him in
very
kick 3. Ben Keys was fantastic. We'll talk about Jordan Dawson as well in Brownlow coming up. We'll talk about Cripps as well. I predicted him to have a big game. He was pretty disappointing. Jordan Dawson has his measure. What was your other highlight of the week? Anything else?
You have to look at the St Kilda and Collingwood game. It was touted to be one of the games of the round, and it was the last game. Look, Collingwood got the chocolates, obviously, but that last 3 minutes, like 3 goals in 3 minutes, and I love the footage of Ross Lyon laughing in the commentator's box because he couldn't believe what was happening. Imagine if St Kilda won that game.
Close too, yeah. It was hyped as the match of the round, but are St Kilda that watchable? They brought Carlton down to their level. Again, it's typical Ross Lyon game
That
style.
is Ross Lyon.
It was brilliant. I mean, it was 70 to 64. It was 70 to 50 with 3 minutes to go. So Collingwood, I got that right, thankfully. Essendon were the other big winners. Melbourne were very plain again. That's been twice they've been really flat up at the Gabba against Brisbane and then against the Bombers on the weekend. Bombers' 2 key rucks exploited Melbourne with their one ruck. So they'll be welcoming Gawn in as soon as they get him in. But they ran the ruckman ragged there, 2 versus 1.
That's right. And what are we going to get out of the Dons this week? The massive Anzac Day clash. I can't wait to chat about that. But let's go over last week's trading tips. Look, I did say to back Carlton at $8.50 plus. They've drifted out to $12.50. Happy to own that. You were keen on backing Collingwood against St Kilda at $1.50 plus. That was a big tick. You also
drifted too. They got $1.60 when Daicos came out. And there was rumours of a flu going around, so they got out at $1.60 and then got the chocolates there.
That's why it's always important to keep your eyes on the Betfair Exchange for those market moves, because obviously something is always happening when the market is moving. You wanted to back Cripps at $11.40. He's drifted out at $15.50.
Yeah.
You have to also put that down to a bit of firming at the top of the market as well. And then currently we have Brownlow positions. Jeremy Cameron at 110 for me.
I was against Richmond too before we move on to Brownlow.
That's right.
Yep.
Marcus Bontempelli at 16.50. That's a bit of a one that we got to keep an eye on. And Darcy Parish is firming from $44. Tom, you had Jeremy Cameron at a big price at 110 as well. And then obviously that Patrick Cripps one. Did you have any other Brownlow?
Yeah, I'm on Jordan Dawson at a big price as well. I've already traded out a little bit of him, but he's been a massive firmer. I've had a lot of players, Karl, so we'll be here all day if I can't start talking about my trades at the moment. But I've got Nick Daicos for a loss at the moment, so hoping he drifts. He's very short.
Well, looking forward to
We'll talk a bit about that.
Exactly.
Just a couple before we move on to next week. Fremantle Gold Coast. Gold Coast traded, both teams traded under $1.14. Gold Coast hit $1.14 and lost. Hawthorn traded $1.35 and they got beaten as well by GWS. So couple of big upsets, I guess, or turnarounds during the match.
Well, it moves into our next segment, and that's Market Watchdog, where we have a look at some of the big market moves, whether they were in last week's games or in the futures markets. Tom, did you have any big Market Watchdog moves you wanted to take a look at?
Oh, we can talk about the Rising Star. We can talk about the Premiership race, and then we've got Brownlow as well. They're the three big markets, especially the Premiership and the Brownlow. Collingwood firmed a little bit, as expected. They got the chocolates there. They firmed 20 cents, but they're firm at $6.20 now. Melbourne drifted out to $1.30 with a second loss at a heavy defeat again. Brisbane Geelong firmed. Adelaide again, the huge firmer. Who would have thought round 2 they were 0-2? Adelaide $4.60 after that round, into 110, into 85, into 65, now 27, Karl. So if you got the 460s, you're laughing. You can trade out at the 27s. They won't win it, but they're going all right. Essendon as well, into $26.65 into 26, so they're going pretty well as well.
Just with Essendon, I mean, pre-round 1, their top 8 price was $4.80. They firmed a little bit into $3.20 before round 5, and after their win on the weekend, they're now into $2.48, which is a massive firm for the Dons, and they're obviously flying with their new coach. Daicos, we've been talking about him every week. He started for the Brownlow pre-round 1 at $29. Before round 5, he was $6.40, and he's firmed massively into $4.40 after another 42 possession performance. So, look, we're on the Brownlow. Let's talk about the Brownlow predictor on the Betfair Hub. And Nick Daicos is solid up the top there with 10.5 predicted votes. Who else you want to take a look at,
Well,
Tom?
you go through the predictor. You've got Darcy Parish second, Jeremy Cameron second. So they're equal on 8 votes, $23 and $18.50 respectively. Have to be value. Jordan Dawson, $7.5 votes currently. So he won the showdown medal, and then he's probably had 2 best on grounds after that. The predictor's got him on 7.5. Chad Warner, 7.5. Clayton Oliver, 7.5 votes. Zach Merritt, well, you put a pen through him now. And that's a big watch for me this week, Karl, is the Brownlow tackles. Now, you don't have to worry if you're in Nick Daicos because he doesn't get a tackle. So, but these sling tackles and dangerous tackles, we saw Zach Merritt gone. So be careful. We saw the trades. Zach Merritt, obviously, as soon as the AFL announced he was suspended and going to get a week, he drifted right out. He was still there. Pending the review, but didn't get off.
I know this is exaggerated. We heard Alistair Clarkson say in the last couple of days that the tackle, could be gone because the players don't know what to do. Like they're taught to tackle by pinning the arms and then taking the player to ground. If you can't do that, which is a traditional tackle, then what are you supposed to do? It's going to be an interesting one to watch.
It is so true. Players with the ball are so strong, so smart. They try and break the tackle. They try and get the hands free. It's hard to tackle them, right? And there's no 2 actions. Everyone got, and this is what Clarkson came out and said, we got told there was 2 actions involved. You pick them up, you sling. But now it's just dangerous and forceful tackles. They're getting a week. So I, for one, think the Brownlow medal needs to change on the back of this, purely.
That's a massive call. Tom, obviously the Brownlow medal is about being the best and the fairest player in the competition. And obviously, traditionally, we've seen players get rubbed out. Who were they? Luke Darcy, Corey McKernan.
Yep.
Corey McKernan, that's amazing. Won a Brownlow medal, but was rubbed out because he got suspended. That's a big call.
If Zach Merritt goes on to win the Brownlow, I would hate to see him. We saw Clayton Oliver in round 2, I think. His tackle was probably worse than Zach Merritt's. Now they've tightened it up. Like, imagine if Oliver got a week for that, goes on to win a Brownlow. It says nothing about him being unfair. I all for the head being sacrosanct and that, but I also think you've got to reward good tackles and don't lose a Brownlow on the back of a forceful tackle.
Yeah,
that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, I think it's a good call. It probably needs a bit of workshopping,
especially as a punter, Karl. If I'm going into round 22 and someone lays a tackle and there's a $1.80 favourite, what are they going to do then?
Yeah, well, they'll storm the streets with their pitchforks. That's for sure.
I would be doing that. I don't protest, but I might be out there somewhere.
I want to talk about, just moving on from the tackling. I can't wait to see what Clayton Oliver dishes up for the rest of the season, because I think he is a fantastic prize for the Brownlow medal. He is having an all-time season, as he usually does, or as we've come to know, but averaging 34 touches this year, which is in the elite category. Averaging 7 tackles a week, which is just crazy, obviously, in the elite category. And then he's a clearance king, near 8 clearances per week. And his AFL fantasy is around that 125. He is the mould of a Brownlow medal winner. And we know how short he gets into the Brownlow each year. He's $8.60 now, and he drifted off the back of Nick Daicos' firm. He's going to win the Brownlow medal, Tom.
I can't talk you out of it. I think he's clear top hope at the moment. Now, you go to the next 4 rounds, he'd be the bet too, because they've got, who have they got this week? They got Richmond on Anzac Eve. Then they've got North Melbourne, Gold Coast and Hawthorn. So that you predict him to win all 4 of those matches. He polls in those 4 matches or goes close to that polling in those 4 matches. So, I think he's the play this week as well, Karl. I agree with you.
I think when we like to talk about horse racing as well here at Betfair, and when you look at those short price, just a little bit, when you look at those short price favourites that have that SP profile, like you have to also parallel that with Clayton Oliver, because he always has a good price in Brownlow markets. So he clearly gets attention from the umpire. I think that's got to play into it a little bit as well.
There has been a lag with media as well. Media hype one year and at least doesn't, like we saw it with Dane Swan back in the day. He was clearly fantastic. Then the media jumped on him and talked about him.
Yep.
That whole year he didn't poll well. The year after, once the media had pushed his narrative and how good he was, then the umpires started to take notice, which is a flow-on effect. Daicos, the media's all over him. So it's going to be fascinating how he goes this year. They were all over him last year. Oliver, always, he's got the recognition now. But that's why when you take into account, and that's the beauty of the Brownlow medal predictor, you take into account coaches' votes, Herald Sun votes, the Age votes, the media votes. It does all come into calculations. But a few big drifters. Kaldawi was out. He didn't play. He drifted from 22s out to 34. Took Miller drifted. Andrew Brayshaw continues to drift. He's got none. And LDU has drifted as well.
Well, that's the Brownlow medal, Tom. Thanks for that. Let's get into the ladder predictor. And
just Jordan Dawson, 100 into $18.50, Karl.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic season. And he goes under the radar a little bit in Adelaide. He's a quiet achiever over there. I can't believe he's left Sydney as well. We forget that he was a Sydney Swan. He was a fantastic player there. But let's get into the ladder predictor. And there's some really interesting prices. We've seen the rated price of Melbourne actually firm a little bit. But their exchange price hasn't matched that. They're still $6 on the exchange, showing a massive positive edge. What do you think about that, Tom?
Yeah, well,
why do you think that's happened?
They're rated $3.67, so I can't believe it's so short on the back of a loss. But then you go through their draw. They've got Richmond North, Gold Coast, Hawthorn. So they should start short price favourites in all 4 of those matches. So they should win all 4. They'll be shorter again. I'm happy to back them now at the $6, Karl. Even though they're off a loss, I think that's the play there. They'll be shorter than 6 at some stage through the year. So I think in 4 weeks' time, they'll be $4.50, $4 potentially. Happy to take the 6 and lay off at $4.50.
The rated price for Carlton, as expected, has drifted out to $23. They were around $17 last week and still $12.50 to win the premiership. So potentially a lay opportunity there. What I want to speak about is Sydney. Now, the ladder predictor has been really firm on the rated price of Sydney at $6.66, and the exchange price just won't match it. Why do you think that the rated price is around that $6.66 mark for Sydney?
I haven't analysed their draw, but it must mean that they have a relatively easy draw coming up. That's the only thing I can put it down to. I mean, I think they're just going. They've got Geelong this week, GMHBA, first game down the category for the Geelong. That's a huge advantage, and they've got so many injuries as well. So maybe it's just a flow-on of their big men haven't actually come into calculations. But Tom Papley on the weekend, highest-rated game for the season. Our man, he was unbelievable. Even in the first half when he hadn't kicked a goal, he set up 2 or 3 goals with some brilliance, then kicked 6 in the second half. Unbelievable match.
What a star. He gets me up off the couch. He's a fantastic player.
We should do our top 10 players to watch. He's right in the mix. They've got some key injuries, Sydney, so that's a huge concern for them. So did Geelong, though. Geelong have got a couple of key outs this week. Stanley's out and their small forward as well. So it's going to be an interesting game. You'd back Geelong in at $1.58 there to beat Sydney with the lack of tools. You think Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins will take advantage. I don't know who's going to play on Tom Hawkins. A second gamer, potentially. It's going to be tricky.
It's going to be tricky. Any bets you want to have just off that ladder predictor there?
As I said, I'm happy to take Melbourne. I'm taking the 6. If they get to $5, $4.50, you can trade out. So take the 6 now. That's my strategy.
Love it, Tom. All right, let's get over to the buy, hold, and sell segment. I love this segment, Tom, and I'll kick us off. Like I said before, I'm buying Clayton Oliver. I think he's going to win the Brownlow medal simply. I talked through his averages before. He's in fantastic form. He profiles as a player, inside mid, someone that gets a lot of footy. Another key thing is he's already kicked 3 goals for the year, and his last year total was 5. So I think a main indicator of a Brownlow medalist is someone that can kick goals. So I'm really looking at buying Clayton Oliver this week. Tom, who's your buy?
Yeah, I really like that. I'll be with him too, and Ben Keys will touch up Nick Daicos around 7, Karl. So tag him from the forward line again. I'm buying Collingwood this week. I think they'll win on Anzac Day. I think they'll beat Essendon and they'll firm again for the Brownlow. I think they're a better team than Essendon. Not writing off Essendon, but I thought Melbourne were a bit flat last week. Collingwood for me, obviously their captain and is suspended this week. So Collingwood for me, and they are my buy. Backing them Anzac Day.
This week, I'm going to hold on the Bombers. And like you said, I've got nothing against the Bombers. I really respect what they're doing. And it's a team that if I was playing them, you'd have to give them respect because they're playing with a new vigour. But they've got the Pies on Anzac Day. I'm just going to sit and enjoy the game. I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with Nick Daicos. Do they tag him? I know what I'll be watching is for Darcy Parish to have a big game. He's obviously won the medal in the past, so looking forward to that. And
I backed him last year in the Anzac Day medal, and Ginnivan knocked him off. Darcy Parish had 35 to half time or something.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
And he didn't get it. Game. It was unbelievable.
Just before we move on to your hold, big shout out to Scott Pendlebury. He's playing in his 15th Anzac Day match, and he's just the definition of ageing like a fine wine. So good luck to Scott Pendlebury. I wouldn't rule him out of winning the medal. He's playing so well at the moment. But your hold, Tom?
2 teams I'm holding on that might fill the bottom 2 spots of the top 8, but Port and Bulldogs. I struggle to get a read on them. I'm not sure they're that good. Port have got West Coast this week, so no matter what happens in that game, if they win by 50-odd points or 10 goals, you can't get a read on them. They've got St Kilda and the Bombers after that. So they're my hold this week, Port Adelaide.
Nice, Tom. And I've got a really weird sell because sell's usually a lay, a negative, but this is actually a positive for these 2 teams. So I'm selling North and Gold Coast for the least wins market because I don't think they're going to get the least wins, and I think they're short enough and a good price enough to lay. I think in that market, it's going to go to Hawthorn or West Coast for least wins, who should be the shortest, and they are the shortest. West Coast have such bad injuries at the moment. And Hawthorn are still that young side. Sam Mitchell's going to pull out a win every now and again with some tactical brilliance, and we've seen already this year. But yeah, I'm gonna sell North Melbourne and Gold Coast in the least wins market.
Selling Sydney versus Geelong. I think Sydney will go down to the Cattery and get done. I just think the tools will be too strong for Sydney up there. I also want to lay Nick Daicos at the 460. I just think he's too short. I think Clayton Oliver, as I said, Melbourne will win the next 4. I think Jeremy Cameron will firm on the back of potentially beating Sydney this week. He's got to have a quiet game at some point. He's just dominant. But
well, team's got to look after him at some point.
Ross Lyon came out and said we should have tagged him. It's a bit late when you get beaten by 6 points and he has 48 possessions, surely.
Yep, that's right.
Is that silly?
And I liked obviously Brisbane did it a few weeks ago and got the win at the Gabba, and we saw Dane Zorko go to him and just rough him up a little bit. At the end of the day, he's a 19-year-old.
And run off him, actually be positive and kick some goals on him and make him accountable. But just on Daicos, he's 317th in the comp for tackles at the moment and not in the top 200 for pressure acts. So it's really interesting. So you look at that, and I think, and I looked at the St Kilda Collingwood game, and I was wondering whether Ross Lyon thought he was having a huge impact on the game because he got no attention, but he obviously he's winning the coaches' votes. So the coaches are obviously respecting what he's doing, but they're not putting anyone on him.
That's right.
It's bizarre at the moment. Good watch.
Good watch. I'm going to keep an eye out on that one. I'm going to get to an education question maybe at the end, but let's give our betting strategies for this week. I'll kick off, like I've said, three times now. I'm going to back Clayton Oliver at $8.60. I think his odds could half by the end of the year, so I'm keen to ride that wave. Hopefully he doesn't get suspended from a silly tackle.
Just don't tackle, Clayton.
Just don't tackle. You're averaging 8 a week.
Just run around loose. Tough. Don't get near. Just rack up the possessions, kick goals.
So do what Nick Daicos is doing.
Correct. Correct.
What else are you going to do, Tom?
I'm backing Melbourne for the flag, $6. Happy to take that as we keep harping on that. I like the Clayton Oliver call because they'll potentially win their games and he should poll votes. So I'm happy to be with you on that. But Melbourne flags.
Nice. I'm going to go a lay this week. Gold Coast against North Melbourne. I'm going to lay Gold Coast. They're currently $1.33 on the exchange, and I think that's far too short. I'm not going to risk much, but I'd like to lay Gold Coast and watch their price drift in play because you just have to respect Al Clarkson. He's a tactical genius, and I think he has Gold Coast covered. So, yes, they might win that game, but I think their price is way too short now. Your best lay, Tom?
I'm going to jump on to Betfair at about 3:30 on Sunday and lay Adelaide for the top 8. After this week, they play Hawthorn, so they should win that. They've got Collingwood, Geelong, St Kilda, Bulldogs, Brisbane. So, tough run the next 4 or 5 matches.
Yeah, I might have gone a little bit too early with Adelaide. Tom, I got an education question for you just to round out the show.
I'm prepared for this.
Well, because you're so astute at the exchange, you'll be able to answer it. Just give the punters a bit of an education about, obviously, when we're backing into something. So let's use the Jeremy Cameron example at $110.
Yep.
Why would you trade off that bet, or when do you think you should trade off that bet? How do you make that decision?
When is the hard part? And if you could find out, if you knew the answer, you'd be rich. I wouldn't be here. I'd be sitting somewhere in a tropical holiday.
You'd probably just go back to Adelaide.
Yeah, no, I'd be in a tropical place with my feet up if I knew that answer. Obviously, we're here to predict when to do it. That's why we do the show. So you look at the draw. Jeremy Cameron, they've got Sydney this weekend. Sydney got no tall defenders. Blakey might have to play on him, something like that. He was fantastic last week, Blakey. But that's you predict the future. When he gets into a price you rate it at, then you potentially shorten. So you just try and work out why do it. Well, it makes sense. You try and it's so hard to make money in wagering. If you can lock in a profit, that's the way to do it. So try and lock in a profit. It's the beauty of the exchange. You can back and lay and trade. If you backed him at 110, you lay off at 10. You can get your stake back. You can win either way, however you want to do it. Just trade. There's no stress. You make money. So that's why you do it. When's the key?
Yeah, something that you talk about, on these shows and together with your mates and obviously, yeah, you get that advice. So Thank you so much. You nailed it, Tom. That's all we've got time for this week on AFL Trade Talk. Head to the Betfair Hub to see our betting strategies and check out more content.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.